Hello, and thank you. This is Jessica Heredia. I'm reporting with East County Magazine, and today I'm sitting down with Dr. LaShae Sharp Collins, who's running for the 79th State Assembly District. Thank you so much for your time today, Dr. LaShae Sharp Collins. We really appreciate your time, taking out your busy schedule, and we want to give you a congratulations on your campaign today as well. Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you so
Yes,
much.
thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. First, we're going to start off with your biggest accomplishments. Tell us a little bit about what got you here today.
Ooh. Well, I know that you want me to start off with my biggest accomplishments, but if it's okay, I would like to start off by first and foremost thanking you once again for having me here. And I want to say that my heart is with the district and also our community at this time. As a lifelong resident in one of the hardest hit areas, I mean the hardest hit areas, and as an individual whose own family members were also directly impacted by the historic floods, I'm saddened by what has actually occurred. And so I just wanted to say that to those who were impacted, please do what you can to visit my actual website, LaShaeForAssembly.com for storm/flood related issues, as I am the only candidate who is sharing this information in real time because I know how important it is to the constituents to receive resources and also support. And so I just wanted to state that the health and well-being of our constituents will always be my overall top priority, always has been and always will be. So I just wanted to share that information out with everyone, um, because yes, my family has been impacted. And so my goes out to everyone. My
What
experience having served. Go ahead, go ahead.
I was going to say, could you tell them your website since you do have real-time information on there,
Oh,
how to find that?
sure. My website is LaShaeForAssembly.com. That's LASHAE, the word for FOR, assembly.com.
Thank you.
So please feel free to go ahead and visit the website. My experience having served in the 79th Assembly District as a district director for Dr. Shirley Weber, who was our current Secretary of State. I served for her for 9 years. And while I was serving for her in the Assembly, this actual experience of working for her has 100% prepared me for this particular moment, you know? And this is why Planned Parenthood, along with the California Democratic Party, California Faculty Association, the Legislative Black Caucus, United Domestic Workers, and Smart Justice California, and a whole host of other Democratic leaders and also community organizations and statewide organizations have 100% endorsed me. And they've endorsed me and support me because they know that I'm ready to go in and just hit the ground running, like straight up from day one. And so I'm really honored to have their overall support. And so when it comes down to why I am doing this, in all honesty, me running for this particular seat is because I want to make sure that our constituents have a real strong seat at the table. I think that is very important for our community, all of our communities to be heard, for all of our communities to be respected. And in order for us to be heard and also to be respected, we have to have a seat at that table and be a part of these real strong, hard fought conversations that too often people don't want to address. And so that is a key aspect for me as a candidate running for state assembly. And so this is why I am here. I'm here to continue to serve. I'm here to continue to do the work that I have been doing for a very long time as I worked in Weber's office for those 9 years, already doing the work, meaning providing constituent services, not only providing constituent services, but listening to our community, working on landmark legislation over the years, and also having the ability to address the education concerns. And I would continue to I would continue to do that work to address the education concerns, but also make sure that I am continuing the work on collaborating with all of our levels of government. And especially when we think about things that has just transpired, we now have to have a strong collaboration amongst all of us in order so we can move forward and make sure that these types of disasters that has happened do not happen again. And shall they happen, but we are 100% prepared. And so I've already been doing the work to make sure that we stay prepared, and whenever we're not prepared, that we do what we can to get ready.
Wonderful. Well, those are great accomplishments and great reasons to be here. Thank you. So since we're on the subject of storm drains, let's go ahead and talk about what you can do to get funding to maintain our storm drains and possibly increase our infrastructure in that as well. And tell us a little bit about that role as a state assembly member, what you can do for the 79th district for that if you're elected.
Well, I mean, in all honesty, it really boils down to accountability and also transparency. So, as the assembly member, it would be my duty to ensure that I am communicating with our city officials and also with our county officials in regards to how the funding is actually being used. You know, I was on the California or the OES call, and on that call, they clearly 100% stated that we've always been prepared for for the wildfires. You know, so the budget, there's money that's allocated for wildfires, there's stuff that's allocated for the landslides, but never have we been prepared for actual flooding because we live in sunny California. We haven't really thought about all of that, you know. And so even though things have happened over the years, it hasn't been something that has been consistent. So
Right.
if I am elected or when I am the assembly member, as I've done already in while I was working in this particular office, I will continue to advocate for adequate funding to come down, but I will continue to do the work of holding each and every one of us accountable for how the funding it is being spent. I know right now efforts are being made and actually have been done when it comes down to the communities of South Crest and Canto and also the Mountain View area. And so far, the city has been able to inspect over 480 storm drains, and they've cleared out 73 drains so far. So there is something that is being done. However, we know for a fact that a lot more still has to happen. So even though we are doing our inspection, those inspections should be more than just, you know, a annual inspection. It should be something that's done maybe even quarterly or twice a year. You know, whatever we have to do because of the fact that we don't get a lot of rain, you know, down here within Southern California. So, but the biggest thing for me is once again, it's going to be accountability and also transparency and making sure that I advocate for us to officially have some funding within the budget to ensure that if something like this happens, that we don't always have to rely on our federal government to do so, but we will have, you know, an actual pocket of funds available. And I'm happy that President Biden finally declared this an actual state of emergency to where FEMA is now coming in to help provide additional supports and grant opportunities for those that were impacted.
Definitely. And I know that for people that were impacted, money, the sooner the money gets here, the better because they weren't insured and it's a hard place to be. I can't even imagine.
That is a
Um,
big issue.
it is. It's been, I live in Lemon Grove. It's one of the harder hit areas as well. And so I
Hmm.
get it. You know, we're all out there trying to pull our weight together to clean up and do what can be done. So I appreciate you being out there
Hmm.
and helping families like that.
Thank you.
As far as affordable housing, we seem to see a lot of luxury apartments being built. And oftentimes, when luxury apartments are built, it will increase the prices of older residences that would typically have been considered affordable housing before the market crisis that we see today. What can we do to help bridge the gap so that obviously there's people that would love to live in luxury apartments and we should still cater to that as well. But clearly there's a lot of people that need more resources for moderate to
Mhm.
low income housing. And so how do we bridge those gaps so that we can accommodate all the people and make sure that whoever wants to be housed can be?
Yeah, this goes into, of course, the housing and also homeless issue
Mhm.
because you have a lot of people that are being income out, meaning you know, the rents are going up, so therefore they can no longer afford the rents. So they're having to move, you know, to actually vacate from the home. But I believe that it's time that we reimagine our approach to housing and also homelessness within the state. We have tried many methods that do not seem to work, but it's time for us to come up with some fresh new ideas. And so, what exactly can we do to address some of these issues? We can begin by shifting towards homeownership and also addressing generational wealth. And how can we shift towards home ownership and generational wealth? It has to do with one, making sure that our state property, we have a lot of state land, a lot of state property. And so we need to start building housing on some of our state property, and that can help us as far as some of the tax dollars and so forth, for which, you know, us and some others are actually paying for. So housing on our state property, but also turning some of the commercial buildings into housing. We have that as well. And not only are we looking at some of the commercial buildings, but a lot of our institutions, some of our higher education, the institutions and also some of our churches, they own a lot of land. And Fiona Mall's office was able to, our state treasurer, they were able to look into some information, and they've been able to identify that these institutions and also some of the churches can actually build property on their land. And when they built the property, they can house the population for which they are currently serving. At one point, they couldn't build, and have people living on the actual property, but they actually can do that. So trying to emphasize or at least try to push some of the institutions and some of our churches as well to build housing that also can help as well. I'm also looking at the decommission ship idea. So I'm kind of combining homelessness with this statement because we have so many decommissioned ships, and I know that there's a lot of things that have to happen as far as trying to renovate the ships and so forth. But when you look at that, those are cities within itself. You can have one-stop shops right there. So we can have medical services being provided. We can have trade programs being provided. We could have the rehab programs being provided, job training programs being provided, housing, childcare, school. And once again, just like I said, medical care, some mental health services, all types of things can be housed on these decommissioned ships. And that can help those that are homeless as well achieve or even feel some type of actual stability versus having to go to different encampments and so forth and constantly moving every couple of days. They're moving, and a lot of people don't want to move all the time. They want to have a sense of actual stability. Something to call their own. Yeah. But and then there could be housing programs that are also there, and that takes me into the part of us actually expanding credit repair programs statewide and trying to make sure that those resources are 100% available to our constituents. And that's something that is key. A lot of people don't know where to go. They don't know how to obtain the information as it pertains to credit repair programs and trying to find the programs that are free. Because too often these programs cost. And so people don't always want to enroll in a program that's going to continue to take away from them. They're already in debt. But what type of free credit repair programs can we offer and then also provide those resources? Another thing too has to deal with strengthening the HCV, which is the Housing Choice Vouchers for California, and that is for the home ownership programs. And so funding and the implementation of this program needs to still happen as far as for the down payment and also grant options. So this is not offered by every public housing agency, but San Diego County Housing Authority and also the San Diego Housing Commission and National City offer the HCV program. And so it would behoove us to work to increase staffing levels for this type of program and the overall capacity because they need to have a whole list of actual vendors. This is how we can move the home ownership. We have so many people that are on the Section 8 list. You have a 10-year wait list for Section 8. So how can we move them off of Section 8? And one way is to make sure that they have access to the HCV program and they know about the program and they go through the classes, they go through that particular training, and then they are able to, of course, slowly but surely move into home ownership. That way we can now move others that are still on that wait list into the other housing. We have to start having some type of rotation. So trying to shift people from where they are now and moving them into home ownership so we can promote the generational wealth. In order for the program to be successful, we definitely have to continue and really do a better job on outreach and education to the lending institutions. There's a lot of lending institutions that are on the fence of trying to be a part of the program. You have a lot of lenders that we don't have access to, so we have to increase the access to our lenders. We have to also bring awareness of down payment assistance programs and eligibility. And we know that the eligibility requirements can change. However, we need to make those eligibility requirements a little bit more equitable. So that way we're not only trying to address those that are at the bottom, but we have to do what we can to address everyone from all levels. And that will also require us to have partnership with housing counseling agencies as well. So I know I said a lot, but these are to me very key, components in regards to what we can do to address the housing crisis. And we talk about affordable housing, but for me, I'm looking at housing affordability. What can we do to get our constituents to be able to afford to get into the homes and make sure that they do have some of the subsidies available to them, such as the HCV program, and not having it only be a one-time type of funding, but something that is ongoing funding to ensure that they can not only pay their rent, but they can pay the utilities that come along with home ownership. So I know what it's like to go through the process of wanting to own a home and dream about it, but then have to stay with somebody, or let's say, for example, you got to move in as far as your, go back home to your parents, stay there for 2 years or 3 years or so just to save the money to have the money for the down payment. Not everybody has that luxury, but that's something that I had to do. I had to move back home to save money to purchase a home. And luckily I was able to do that. So me being a candidate for this particular seat, but also for having worked in Weber's office, these are things that we have actually already, when I was working in that office, provided out to our constituents. We had homeownership workshops. We've had some lending workshops. And so these are things that I would actually continue should I be elected, because we know for a fact over 40% of our unhoused Californians thin adult only households, and they come in contact with homelessness response systems. And this is coming from the 2021-22 physical year, and the age range of them has been 50 and older. So a number of people that are age 55 and over sought out homelessness services and have been pretty much pushed out of their homes.
Yeah.
And that's something that has to be addressed 100%. So yeah, these are things that I've done before and I will continue to do again. Make
I
sure
like
people
it. You've
understand
really thought
that
that
it is
out, and you
available.
really rounded out your approaches there. I think that's probably exactly what it needs, actually, is hitting it from all the directions, right? Thank you. That's great. Great answer.
No, you're welcome.
And with Akila Weber, who had this seat the last 4 years, who's running now
Mhm.
for state senate, she was good at coming into communities and giving money for parks and rec and community programs and events that really centered around families and those kinds of things. What would be your goals if you were elected to state assembly as to projects that you would want to help get funding for?
I mean, honestly, that is the same thing. It's going to be community driven.
Mhm.
So I would need to talk to my constituents and see what type of additional funding they need from different programs and also services. And so, for example, when we were in Rever's office, we allocated funds to help with the Jackie Robinson YMCA. We were strong about advocating for that, and we were strong about advocating for the MLK. Um, what is it called? It's the MLK Promenade that is over in one of our communities as well. And so it is important that we listen to our constituents and find out what their needs are, and then see whether or not we have already had some of the funding actually being allocated to those areas. And then if not, what can we do to ensure that they are having, of course, a much better safe and also fun and vibrant community. So I will 100% continue to do the same thing. Akila has done a phenomenal job as far as coming over and advocating for parks and recs and some of the different types of statues coming into our community to honor some of our leaders and so forth. And I will continue to do that same thing because this is what our community is asking for, is what our constituents are asking for. It's the reason why you're elected in the first place. It's to listen to your constituents. And if it's going to be something that's going to benefit not only our community but the entire state, then it's something for which we should consider moving forward. As long as our kids are going to benefit from that, then everybody is going to benefit from that. So I will continue to do the same work that both of the Webbers have done in this particular office.
Yes, they have definitely done a great job serving their constituents in that office for sure.
Yes, yes, because we've done a lot of work over in Broadway Heights. The actual community that I was talking about was
Mhm.
Broadway Heights, where we had the MLK Promenade, and it's beautiful.
It is beautiful. I have been there.
It's
It is very
beautiful.
nice. It's a bonus in
Yeah,
that neighborhood for sure. We don't have enough park
absolutely.
spaces in those regions over there. I know, again, living in Lemon Grove, we're a very limited park space community. So anytime we can get more public parks or access to recreation, it's good for everyone. But I especially agree with you in the whole grander scheme of the children. If we start there, we can really eradicate some of the problems that we see socially as we age. So
Yes, we
kudos.
can. Thank you.
Thank you. And I know we already talked about homelessness, so I won't have you ramble on, I guess, about it, because you really addressed it as I think it should be addressed, is really that it starts with housing, and it's not just one problem. It stems from many problems.
Correct.
But what can we do at the state assembly level to help the district get either more funding or more programs? What can you do to alleviate some of the problems that we have with homelessness in that district?
It really comes down to some of the things that I did previously state,
Yeah.
but it also well, we have to address these social economic factors, so there's social justice issues that we have to, well, I don't want to say social justice, but I meant to say economic justice
Oh,
issues for
mm,
what we actually have to address. And it boils down to us as the assembly members, and once again, going back to the work that I've already done in the office, is really seeking out the true collaboration between all of us from all levels of our government. So it boils down to us asking for the funding and then having the funding allocated down to their county and also to the cities. And then me as the assembly member working with our city and also our county to make sure that we are providing enough housing for our homeless population and that we are addressing the homeless population with true, sincere compassion. Because not everybody who was homeless is someone who was fresh out of jail, someone who has a drug issue. There's a lot of mental health concerns. Then you have some people who actually choose to be on the street for whatever other reason. So we cannot approach things from a one size fit all model. Okay. We have to think outside the box when we are addressing the homeless population. Go to them, talk to them, ask them, connect with them, build their relationships with those that are homeless. And they will tell you. And then you have to remember that we have the invisible homeless, meaning those that we don't see. We have those that are living on people's couches and, people that are, yes, we know about people who are living in cars, but then you still have those that, once again, they are couch hopping. You have college students that are considered homeless.
yeah,
You have kids that are in high school that are considered homeless, and they're considered that just because they do not have a primary address to write down. And so, what can we do to get to the root cause of that? And that has to deal with communication, going out and talking to people, meeting them where they are, and find out the who, what, why. And then from there, then we can get to how can we resolve the problem. Once again, it cannot be a one size fit all model because things are different from culture to culture. And we have to be able to address them based on that cultural stance, based on that religious stance. And so once you can connect with people, get them to know that, hey, I am here to help support you and to share all these additional resources with you, then they may take you up on the opportunity as far as being housed. But we can't go in prejudging people. We have to leave our biases out, leave out the microaggressions. So, as the assembly member, and once again, going back to the work that I've previously done, this is what we have done. We did homeless walks around the community. We did have conversations with those that were impacted. We talked to students, we talked to foster children, we talked to a lot of different people who have been impacted and who have been considered a part of the homeless population. And we were trying to find out why.
right.
And they're saying, and they're telling you that a lot of it had to deal with the cost of living. A lot of it had to deal with the minimum wage not being up to an actual livable wage. And now here we are now doing what we can to make sure that we have a actual livable wage. And then from it being livable wage, now it boils down to medication. So people needing to have the funding to obviously afford the medication they need for their mental health support. And there's a host of other factors that come into play. So I'm just going to sum it all up by saying that there is no one size fit all model to approaching homelessness. We have to meet people exactly where they are. Once again, approach them with sincere compassion. And as the assembly member, I will continue to advocate for enough funding coming down, and it still addresses accountability and also transparency. You have to have accountability, transparency, and also assessment. And to assess whatever we are doing, is it working? If it's not working, talk to them and find out why it is not working. Work with them to find a solution. Because once again, everything's different from person to person, culture to culture, religion to religion.
Very true. And we live in a very diverse community. So you definitely have to be mindful of all those different factors. I totally agree with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, this one should be easy for you because I know you're an educator. And I've chosen to focus on the cost of college.
Let's go.
I know, right? I am a mother of a daughter who's 25, recent college graduate, and we were shocked, both me and her, at the cost of college and the affordability for some students. There's a lot of kids who just are kind of in this pocket of they're not poor enough and they're not rich enough, and they don't get any grant money or whatever, but they still deserve the right to go to college. And so I personally would like to see more people have access to college. What can we do to make costs of college more affordable in the state of California, as well as give more access to kids who want to go?
Well, the state of California has already started doing work with that. Number one was when they were dealing with all of our community colleges. So now when you go to community college for free, right? So that was one step towards trying to make it affordable and also equitable and making sure that people have the same opportunities. But then for me, which is one of my legislative components that I want to do moving forward, should I be elected, is we need a cap on our tuition increase. We absolutely have to have a cap on that. Because the tuition, it continues to go up. We are incoming people out. Once again, it boils down to that. Same situation with housing, same situation with homelessness, we're incoming people out. And the people who are getting hit the hardest are the people from the BIPOC communities, people of color.
Mhm.
They are getting hit the hardest.
Yeah.
And so now they're applying to HBCUs and other places that are saying, hey, go ahead and come on over here because they can no longer afford to go to a college. Well, to at least go to one of our state universities, one of our CSUs and also Cal State, the universities here within California. And so while I was also still in Weber's office, we definitely pushed and worked on our middle class scholarship. Were you aware of our middle class scholarship program from the state of
Uh,
California?
Tell us all about it.
No, so we do have that. So those of us who do not fall under the typical low income threshold, you
Yeah.
can apply for the middle class scholarship. And so
Okay.
there is funding that is available for plenty of people to actually to actually apply for. Not only is it that, but a number of the various caucuses have scholarships as well that people can also apply for. And so when it boils down to making college a lot more affordable, that was one of our fixes during that time, was to say, hey, we know we have the scholarship and the grant opportunities, and not everybody can apply for a grant. I didn't qualify for a grant. My daughter, she's college age as well. She went to Clark University, did not qualify. So everything is going to be a parent loan. But what can we do to alleviate some of the stress off of our parents? And that's why we came up with the middle class scholarship program for people to go ahead and also apply to. But to try to make it a lot more affordable for all, I mean, yes, so we have the California Promise program for our community colleges, but we need to consider something similar to that for our 4 years as well, for our CSUs and also our UCs. But the tuition increase is number one. That has to stop. There has to be a cap. There must be a cap put on that. Another thing that I would like to do is work with the California Department of Education as it pertains to requiring school districts to have a lot more MOUs. So, for example, I believe it's Chula Vista. I can't think of the school right now. Sweetwater. Sweetwater has a program, and so does Hoover High School. And so it's guaranteed admission for their seniors to go to San Diego State or really go to, well, for them, it's San Diego State University. But there is guaranteed admission provided that you are a part of the program. That's Sweetwater. So it is the MOU for which Sweetwater has, the agreement they have with San Diego State, and then Hoover High School has with San Diego State. We need a lot more of our school districts, our high school districts, coming up with these types of MOUs or some type of programs to ensure that there are guaranteed admissions for a number of our students that are CSU also, yeah, those that are CSU eligible and also UC eligible. We know we have the A through G requirements and they're adding on to that. But we have the A through G requirements. But beyond that, what else can we do to ensure that kids can get into college? Housing is becoming an issue. Your
Mhm.
daughter's in college, paying
Yeah.
for the dorms.
Yeah.
So they're going to college, they're getting in and paying the tuition, right? But
Hmm.
then there's an issue when it comes to now having to pay for the housing and now having to pay for the food vouchers, for paying for the food programs. So what else can the state do? We need to have programs put in place to assist our California students who are going to our CSUs and our UCs with housing. We should alleviate or take away some of the cost for the housing. I don't
Yeah,
see why we continue to force them to pay all this money for housing when they're residents of California.
yeah. The housing
So
I
we give them
remember
housing.
was high.
Go ahead.
I remember the
Housing
housing
is
was high.
housing is just as much as people's tuition.
It was, yes. I think it might have even been a little bit
Just as
higher.
much. Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we need to start thinking about these things. So we're always talking about let's get them to college and let's pay for it. But no one's thinking about the added on costs that we still have to do. So we definitely need some type of state program put in place to help offset the cost of housing. We need to pay those of you who are California residents, we should be able to pay at least half of that, if not cover the housing for you. That's in my personal opinion. That's going to help a little bit as far as the college affordability. Once again, tuition caps, we cannot continue to increase tuition the way that we are. I get the cost of living and all this stuff is it's so high, it's going up. But once again, if we want these students to achieve at the highest level possible, we have to give them equal access and opportunities to get there. And when we're putting these caps up here as far as how much it costs, we are once again incoming people of color out of the opportunity to go to college. A lot of people cannot, they do not qualify for loans. They do not qualify for the grants. And they're trying to find someone else to help them apply for it. A lot of people are not filing taxes, you know? A lot of people do not have the money. So what can we do? What type of, I guess you could say, pot of money we can have people actually apply for um, who meet. So let's come up with our own state criteria, but have them apply for the funding for those who, once again, you have parents, just like I said, that are immigrants, and there are parents who haven't filled out taxes, their credit repaired, their credit is not where it needs to be, so they can't, obviously get approved for a parent loan and etc. The state should have some money available for these families to apply for. That's where the middle class scholarship come in at, but something separate from the middle class scholarship should also be available for families to apply for and receive funding so their kids can go to school. I know I said a lot, but education, I love when we talk about education.
I know.
So
I figured you might. And it was great because it was a college question to boot. And usually it's K through 12, and we could talk about that too, but I know that the cost of college is impacted my family quite a bit and lots of families that I know. So I thought we dip,
uh,
dip the toe into that.
trust me, I know. I know. And then
Right.
of course, me being a adjunct professor at San Diego State, I see what my students are going through,
Mhm.
and they're paying for college, but then they're paying for housing, and it's horrible when it comes down to at the end of every semester they have to move out.
Yeah. Yeah. And then what?
Where do they go? Where do
Right.
they go?
Yeah.
So we
No,
need to
for sure.
guarantee them housing, consistent housing
Mhm.
while they're on break, while they're on winter break. They have to move
Absolutely.
out. And then there's no guarantee when they come back that they may have a space.
Right.
So some
Right.
of them can't return because they don't
Mhm.
have it. So once again, we're talking about, college affordability to get them
Mhm.
in, but what are we doing to help them sustain?
Right.
We
Succeed.
have to put them together.
Yeah,
So we have
for
to
sure.
have both of them. Let's have money to get you in. Let's have money to keep you there.
Yeah.
That's extremely important. So when you talk about one, you have to talk about the other.
True. So true. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. And then healthcare. And we're lucky in the state of California, I have to say, because we have expanded our healthcare access here through the Affordable Health Care Act, and then recently through COVID, expanding some access to Medi-Cal. And what can we do to get more people on an affordable track? I hear again, there's many people who they're kind of in this limbo area. They're not poor enough to get, say Medi-Cal, and they're not maybe they're self-employed and they don't have an employer that puts in part, so they're on the Affordable Care
Hmm.
Act. There's a lot of people feeling disconnected from being able to afford healthcare, even still here in California. What more could we do to increase access and affordability there?
This issue it is not new to me.
Yeah.
Under Dr. Shirley Weber, we were laying the groundwork by fighting for more funding for for actual Medi-Cal. That was extremely important for us. Even now, as a former board member of Planned Parenthood of the Pacific Southwest, I continue to fight for of course the Medicare coverage and also for women's reproductive rights, healthcare education, and also for insurance protections. So I continue to do that overall work. And so when it comes down to healthcare, we have to continue once again to advocate for more funding. Funding has to come in. And so as we're trying to get the funding to come in, there's other mechanisms that we have to, to really start to look into. I know we have the MCO tax that's coming up, Medi-Cal, dealing with the reimbursement rates. We have all these different things that we have to address and also deal with. But a lot of people are questioning whether or not they're going to be able to really receive adequate health care. They're questioning whether or not there is going to be quality care coming into their areas. And when you think about it, all we can do is continue to provide funding and make sure that our community clinics have the funding that they need. Make sure that our community clinics and our hospitals and our healthcare centers have enough staffing that they need. And so that way people can obviously receive the most, well, to me, the best quality, affordable health care there is. And so, one way to do that, once again, is this is why we have to address and then deal with the inequities within the state's current healthcare system. And so, um, and by doing that, it would allow California to meet demands as far as training physicians. It would also do what we can to make sure that our emergency departments are open and that we have a lot more access to them as well. And so, when we're dealing with, you know, um, I'm trying to figure out how to put this in words here, but when we're dealing with, for example, the 79th State Assembly District, and you were there, you were at the forum, and I talked about how this district has a cancer cluster.
Yeah.
That's a major healthcare concern.
Yeah.
Cardiovascular disease is the number one killer in everywhere else, but in San Diego, it's cancer. But amongst women, it's cardiovascular disease as well. These are things that women and people within the BIPOC communities have to feel comfortable going in to be evaluated for, to be assessed for. And one way to do that is to ensure that the community clinics that we have, the doctors that we have, meaning not only community clinics, but the Kaisers and the Grossmont hospitals and um all the other clinics that we have here have staff that looks like them, that speaks their language, that are open and welcoming to everyone. And so people are really concerned now about the quality of healthcare that we are receiving. And so this is why CMA and CNA and Planned Parenthood and others have endorsed me, is because I do understand the diversity. I do understand the diverse needs and issues that reside within this district, and how a number of our constituents they want quality health care. They want it, but they're so nervous in regards to the actual process and the route they're going to take to get it. So when we're looking at healthcare as a whole, it is important that we do everything we can to make sure that everybody has equal and also fair access to it. And I'll continue to advocate for that. That's something we did as well during those 9 years, was advocate for equal and equitable access to healthcare. Your zip code should not determine the quality of care that anyone is going to be receiving. Your zip code and your income should not determine the time frame for which you're going to be screened for
Right.
cancer, or the time frame from which you're going to be screened for your blood pressure issues, or for your heart disease, and for the maternal birth weight. So those who are pregnant and having issues, your zip code should not be the actual be all and say all in regards to the quality healthcare you're going to be receiving. And so these are things that have to be addressed, and we're going to continue to provide additional funding. We're going to make sure that those that are uninsured feel as though they are insured,
Mhm.
because
Oh,
they're going to have affordable quality health care.
perfect. Well, I know as a single mom who was self-employed for most of my adult life, Planned Parenthood at many times in my life was my only form of healthcare. And I can say they've saved me through a lot of heartache and a lot of pain of just not knowing where to go, who to see, how to navigate through the hurdles. So having healthcare now is a blessing, and I can understand the value of it and how important it is for everyone to have. So thank
Mhm.
you for advocating for people.
No, you're
And then
welcome.
one last question. What is it that separates you from your opponents?
What is it that separates me from my opponents? Well, what I can say is that I am, I'm able to come in and just hit the ground running because this is work that I've already been doing. I've already been doing this work while I was in Weber's office, but I've also continued to do the work while I served on the board of Planned Parenthood of the Pacific Southwest. Not only have I served on the board of Planned Parenthood, but I've also continued, to do the work as far as my overall community service and being able to provide supports to the community and giving back to the community. And those are things that are extremely important. And so when it comes down to me having the 9 years, serving in this office, it is a proven fact that the people who have endorsed me trust me. And they trust me because they believe and they know in their hearts, because I already have the experience coming in there, that I'm able to address the most important issues facing the district and also facing the entire state of California. And they trust me to be the person to deliver on those issues, and they trust me to be the person who understands the results and who can actually continue to get those results. And that's important as we move forward. So trust, it is a big, big factor. And the fact that I know the job inside and out, that definitely 100% separates me from anyone else in this race because I've already done the work and I have continued to do the work. So I'm able to come on in and just hit the ground running from day one. And I think the only other factor is that I am you, you know, you are me. I'm from the community. And you said it during our interview here. You're working. Okay, I've worked 2 jobs. You're raising your own children, and so I'm raising my children as well. I'm a proud union member as well of CFA. But then I too share in the same issues and struggles that my constituents have as well. So I'm walking them out in their shoes. And what better person to advocate for you with someone who actually truly know and understand what you've been through?
Wow, that's powerful, actually, because honestly, at the end of the day, you feel more heard if you feel like you're on the same level as somebody too.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, for me, that's really what separates me. I'm here and I have the endorsement of the people who knows best.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
They know
wonderful.
best. So
Yes. Well, thank you. I can tell that you definitely know what you're talking about. You definitely, like you said, you've been doing this already. And I just want to congratulate you again and wish you the best of luck on your run for the 79th state assembly seat. And we look forward to hopefully hearing from you again after the primary.
thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time. I truly enjoyed this interview.
Yes, thank you. We'll talk to you again soon, Dr. LaShae Sharp Collins. We appreciate your time.
Okay.
Thank
Thank you
you.
again.
Uh-huh. You
Take
too.
care.
Bye-bye.
Mhm.
You too.